Ides of March Tuesday this week saw John Kasich win Ohio and Donald Trump handily win Florida, causing the exit of Marco Rubio from the presidential race. With a contested convention and/or a Trump nomination more and more likely, Colorado's uncommitted delegates and federal officials facing re-election now become a much bigger story. Patty, Mike Hoffman came out a couple weeks ago and already said that he was not a Trump guy, not a supporter of Donald Trump, was a supporter of Marco Rubio. Where does somebody like him go now who's facing a pretty stiff challenge for his race in CD6?
Well, I'm sure he's hoping he's not going into retirement, which is what some people in the Republican Party are probably worried they're facing, given the fact that Trump might lead this ticket. You know, last week we talked here about Colorado legislators maybe imposing a civics test on graduating high school seniors. We are getting a civics test every time we turn on the news. You know, there is nothing on cable news other than the fact that Donald Trump may be the Republican candidate for the presidency. You hear them talking about how can they possibly get around, you know, at a contested convention, who can get around the Trump rules? If he gets all the numbers, will he get it? If he doesn't get the numbers, can they bring in a fourth candidate, which the agreement seems to be they really can't. Although the Republican Party and the rules makers at the convention seem to have carte blanche on whatever rules they want to make. So every day you cannot believe the machinations that are going on behind the scenes. Meanwhile, of course, we have the superdelegate system in the Democratic Party here in Colorado. So all of a sudden, you know, Hillary's just rolling along. It doesn't matter what Bernie Sanders says. I'm guessing right now a lot of Republicans think it would be great to have the superdelegate system, which they don't have.
Right. I believe the same thing. It's like that's a great idea. We should have that. Todd, I've heard a lot of, let's say a lot, let me qualify that. I have heard more and more Republicans come out, even in Colorado, saying, I'll support the nominee, whoever he is, even if it's Trump. And I'm just wondering, in a purple state like Colorado, is that wise or foolish?
Gosh, I guess it depends on who that elected official is and what the makeup of their constituency looks like exactly. But I think there's a flip side to your question. And I'll a tip of the hat to my friend Craig Silverman, an alumni of this table. He's really the only one I've heard so far saying, when are one of these Republican Senate candidates going to come out and openly declare they are on the Trump ticket and try to get Trump coattails? It hasn't happened yet that I'm aware of, and quite frankly, that's going to add to this notion that the GOP is splintering. But again, as we talk about the national convention that's coming up for the Republicans and how, you know, there's some trouble there, what I think is really interesting is how much does that trickle down to the state convention? Remember, the delegates from Colorado haven't been chosen. And normally it's much of a homecoming king and queen process, right? People who have been here forever, you nominate them to the national convention and they go, and it's sort of a reward for 20 years of service. Not this year. It's going to be a fight for some of these delegates to win a delegate ticket to the national convention. If I'm the New York Times or the LA Times, I absolutely have a crew of at least one, maybe two people to cover the Colorado convention, because it could augur what's coming up at the national level.
Eric, let's follow up with that. I mean, on Super Tuesday, it seemed like being a Republican delegate from Colorado was just boring. You didn't get to do anything at your own meetings, things like that. Now, the focal point of the convention may be upon some of these people. What do you think?
I equated the Colorado policy in terms of not holding a preference poll to a stuck clock. Even a stuck clock, you know, is right twice a day. The powers that be in the Colorado GOP may have lucked into this because I don't think they were terribly prescient. I think they were just trying to limit participation, limit brain damage, and be a non-factor. But in the process of that, and in the way the whole national process is played out, a lot of these delegates, as Todd has pointed out, may be a key factor. There are not any other state delegations at this point, save for that powerhouse group from the United States Virgin Islands, who at this point are uncommitted en masse. Now, as Todd points out, they may not all be uncommitted. We'll see what happens at the state convention and who is selected to go and whether they are selected based on some kind of publicly stated loyalty to one candidate or another. The math is interesting here. Everyone thinks Trump is on a glide path to get those 1,237 delegates, the magic number. First of all, Trump refers to it as some kind of arbitrary magic number. It's not an arbitrary number. It's a majority. It's 50% plus one. It's not some number that somebody plucked out of nowhere. Currently, about 60% of those delegates to Cleveland have been selected around the country, and Trump has won about 47% of those delegates already selected. So out of the 40% that still have to be selected, Trump needs to win about 55% of those remaining delegates that are still out there to be awarded, which is a higher batting average than what he's batted so far. Now, there are some more winner-take-all states in play. The whole thing could come down to California. California is often a non-factor because it's last in the process. It votes on June 7th. California is winner-take-all by congressional district. So you are probably looking, I believe there are 53 congressional districts out there, 53 separate winner-take-all campaigns on June 7th that could decide the whole thing. Lastly, I'm just intrigued with the notion by which to all of these Republicans, mainstream Republicans who always thought Ted Cruz was the kiss of death, crazy, whatever you want to say, all of a sudden he's starting to look really good these days, which shows you how far this whole thing has drifted.
You talked before we rolled tape about Lindsey Graham saying, one's
death by poison, one's death by gunshot, and all of a sudden he said, poison's not bad. I'm going with Ted Cruz.
Kristen, we talked about politicians running for office again. There's a whole big batch of them at the state capitol, and you cover all the different issues up there. Is there any sense of what's going on nationally among the politicians, the Colorado leaders at Capitol Hill?
Absolutely. In fact, when you wonder why Republicans seem so panicked nationwide about a Trump candidacy, it may be because they're afraid of losing the White House, but it's going to filter down to small potato races up and down the ticket. Democrats here are one seat away from taking a majority of the Senate again. If that happens, they've got the governor's office, they've got the House. It is no holds barred. So it's going to make very big difference in little things like that. And in Colorado is a particular state with a nut that's been tough for Democrats to crack, and that is Latino turnout. The numbers on paper look good for them. For example, in the 6th Congressional District in Aurora, the numbers look like they should be able to pick off Mike Hoffman. They haven't been able to because they haven't gotten the kind of Latino turnout they might need, they think they need, to win that seat. So it's the smaller races in state houses all around the country, and Colorado is ground zero for why that's such a concern.